Hello, welcome back. I'm Kelda Lang Poynott, author and educator. This is Homeschooling 101, Chapter 2, Curriculum Choices. There are a total of 5 chapters in this series. We have already covered planning in Chapter 1. Following curriculum choices, we will cover read, exclamation point, household adjustment, and registering. The registering chapter will be specific to Louisiana. We will look at 5 educational models: traditional, classical, alternative, unschooling, and eclectic. Traditional is how the majority of us were educated. Classroom instruction, teacher-led curriculum, designed specifically for public and private schools. Traditional is what we are most familiar with. We can pick up any textbook, open it up, and follow the plan established by the publishers. They are organized by grade level with goals and objectives. Classical is rooted in the traditions of ancient Greece and Rome. Look for modern approaches to the classical model in The Well-Trained Mind by Susan Wise Bauer and Jesse Wise, and Classical Conversations. Charlotte Mason fits nicely into the classical model, but she was technically a classical traditionalist. Think of her as a hybrid between the two. The classical model teaches cyclical history and science, meaning the student will study 4 different sciences and 4 historical periods 3 times between 1st and 12th grades. Both Maria Montessori and Waldorf education fall into the alternative model. They taught contrary to the rigidity of the traditional model. Although they are different in their focuses, they are both child-centered, not curriculum-centered. Both start with the child's development, not a checklist of skills to cover. Hands-on learning over textbook learning. Unschooling is based on the philosophies of an educator named John Holt. He believed that children learn things as needed. The first time I read John Holt, I shook my head. Coming from a traditional education background, his philosophy was extreme and like nothing I had ever heard. Yet in practice and application, I see its benefits. Unschooling does not mean unparenting. It is legitimate, yet unfortunately has gotten a bad rap. I have heard some people bandy the label about saying, "Oh, we unschool," so that no one challenges them. It comes across with defensiveness about how they are educating their child versus how I might be educating mine. But for those families who have embraced the concept, it has proven positive for them. Eclectic is where I fall on the spectrum between traditional and unschooling. Taking into account each of my child's learning styles, I determined the best fit for both parent and student. I think it is like a salad bar. I pick what I like and need and what works and leave the rest. It doesn't mean that it is not all good, but it doesn't all fit on my plate. In the preschool years, I embraced Montessori and Waldorf toys and activities into our home. They encouraged independence, music, art, and the child's natural curiosity about the world. As we approached elementary school, I leaned into the classical model. For me and my learning style, it is the greatest thing on earth. So that's where we started. I loved it. I embraced it. And my first child relished in the structure and routine. The first few years of his schooling, he enjoyed the cycles of history and science. It all made sense, and we learned grammar, diagramming sentences, and read loads of literature. Yes, we were still doing all the classical things like grammar and Latin because that's what the oldest child was interested in. But when the next child came along, he needed a different approach. He was more of a traditional learner. He just wanted to do what he had to do so he could go and be about his business. The third child came along, and I needed to integrate different learning processes. He was highly kinesthetic, and the formal book learning that I was doing with the older two needed to be modified to integrate his needs. The needs of my children forced me to be eclectic because I needed to expand my knowledge and thinking to accommodate my different students and their learning styles. I needed to relax and not hold so tightly to the rigidity of each educational model. If you are unfamiliar with any of these terms, or if you feel like this is overwhelming information, then start where you feel comfortable. Read, be curious, dip your toes in the water. Don't let it overwhelm you. My background is in elementary ed, and I have continued to be a student of education for the last 40 years. The knowledge I share here is not to intimidate or make you uncomfortable. This is simply a foundation so that when you hear these words or when you read these words regarding homeschooling or an educational model, you are slightly familiar. Even if you're choosing a school for your child, these are important terms to know about educational models. It took me over a decade of reading to learn this information. As an eclectic home educator, I take bits and pieces that work and find what's going to be the best fit. If my heart is in one place and my children do not follow suit, how is that going to work out? We will be constantly at odds. If they are strongly one direction, then I need to up my game and become more traditional or more organized in a classical model. Our eldest son was classically educated. Our middle son fell in line with the traditional, and our third son could wear the unschooling t-shirt most every day. I've dabbled and dove into various education models because I was trying to find the best way to educate each of my boys. Our daughter benefited from it all. We did some traditional learning with textbooks and tests. We followed the classical model with our sciences and social studies, and especially our literature. And as far as an unschooling model, it helped me relax and allow them to pursue their individual interests. John Holt believed that if a child was interested in something, he would pursue it and learn what he needed to know at the time. I've seen this prove itself repeatedly, contrary to my professional educational training. Sometimes it is a bit of a shock to have success without knowing the lesson plan and how a book told me to teach. What a pleasant surprise. One more thing about unschooling. I have not yet met an unschooler, a true unschooler, who did not follow some kind of organized math. They didn't just throw their kids in willy-nilly when it came to math. Along with reading and the other learning of subjects everything was organic. But when it came to math, they began with basic numbers, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and money, because in the discipline of mathematics, it is important to build on those basic concepts as we enter higher maths. Again, I encourage you to educate yourself and find an educational model that fits. Once we know our learning styles and have an idea about our educational philosophy, that's when we can decide on curriculum. The read chapter will recommend specific titles to read more about these educational models. Let's consider packaged curriculum. Packaged curriculum comes from a publishing company like Becca, Sunlight, Bob Jones, or any homeschool brand. You say, I'm teaching a first grader, and they provide everything you need, every subject, even electives for that grade level. For those of us just beginning to homeschool, we might gravitate towards this. Or if your children have been in a traditional school and they've already been using these publishers, we might want to make a smooth transition to what they are already familiar with. There is a draw and an ease to packaged curricula. The lesson plans are laid out for you. You know every single day what you will need to accomplish with your student. For the younger students, packaged curricula are scripted, so your lesson plans tell you exactly what to say to your student to explain the lesson. Within packaged curricula, there are various levels of enrollment and support. You might just want the textbook, the teacher materials. The next level might be professional and technical support for parents. They might have access to an entire online program where you don't have to teach at all, and your students follow a video teacher or participate in an online group like a virtual classroom. With each level comes a different cost. One of the beautiful things about packaged curricula is that it all comes with instructions and supplies. You call, make your order, and the box arrives. Some companies may even provide the pencils and notebooks for the students. They have everything in there for you, and it comes to your door so pretty. And when you open the box, it's gorgeous. Like I said, there is a draw and an ease for the consumer. So let's talk about the pros and the cons of packaged curriculum. Pros: it's one purchase. You make your decision, you move on. It arrives. Hey kids, this is our school. Here we go. Let's open it up and get started. Like I said before, it's scripted and already organized for you. It's thoroughly planned. Your entire year is planned for you. There's built-in support from the company. They have people who are experienced in these curriculums and they can support you through lessons. If you are unsure of what grade level your child may be, they can walk you through placement of your child. Let's say you have a student that you're pulling out of a traditional school. They may have been struggling, so you aren't sure where to begin. The publishers provide assessment to help you know the reading and math levels. One of the cons of packaged curriculum are that it is not personalized to your student. Remember how I talked about an individual's education plan? Packaged curricula cannot provide that in a one-size-fits-all approach. So let's say we ordered the fourth grade set. What if the math is too easy? What if the reading and spelling are too advanced? Maybe they are bored by the content. Perhaps the layout of the textbooks is overstimulating. Be aware that could be one of the downfalls. I also believe that packaged curriculum sets unrealistic expectations with regards to homeschooling. They have rebranded their school materials, modified it slightly, slapped, in quotes, for homeschool on it, and marketed it to homeschoolers. It's big business, and companies spend millions to target homeschoolers. Here, let us help you. Ask yourself, do I want to play school all day in my home, or do I want to incorporate learning within a home environment? To me, packaged curriculum sets unrealistic expectations to bring a classroom model into my home. It works for some families, but overall it makes for more work for mom and dad. I've seen this numerous times when a family is transitioning from traditional school, especially when the student has been struggling academically or socially. It's unrealistic to say, we're going to bring him home and do school here. If school wasn't working there, I'm pretty sure school, in quotes, is not going to work because you're home. Whatever you choose needs to be personalized and targeted towards your child's needs. Another con is that because it is intended for classroom use and now marketed to homeschoolers, there are loads of unnecessary exercises. When I was a classroom teacher, I needed to keep 25 to 30 students busy for the 50 minutes I had them in class. My experience was mostly in middle school, and we do not let middle schoolers have idle hands because it just causes chaos in the classroom. Publishers provide exercises that are not necessary for all homeschoolers to complete. If you know your child can repeatedly perform a concept, whether it be a grammar or math or spelling, they do not need to be drilled 15 more times on it. If they get it the first 5 times, then how many more times do they need to repeat the same kind of problem to prove proficiency or mastery? There's also a great deal of review built into many of these curricula. Again, your child may not need all that review. Packaged curricula is also expensive. Depending on the level of support you purchase, it might be too expensive to purchase materials for multiple students at different grade levels. When we choose to homeschool, we oftentimes reduce our work hours or live on one income so that one parent can be the primary educator. For many of us, when we choose to homeschool, packaged curricula may be an investment that is out of our budget. I love certain curricula. Honestly, I'm drawn to them. When our fourth child came up the ranks, I wanted this phonics and reading curricula so badly. It was probably $300 for this one child. Understand that I'd already taught my sons to read. So why did I suddenly become obsessed with this one curriculum? A friend said, yeah, I'm really hesitant to marry and invest everything in one curriculum. She asked, so how does this one purchase affect your budget? I had to confess that it would pretty much blow the bank. She helped me see reason that it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it because I didn't know if the program would even work, and I had already taught our three boys to read. I did not need anything fancy. I admitted she was right and made a better financial decision. I learned to be a wise consumer because marketing works and we are easily lured by the packaging. Let's also consider the possibility that we purchase a packaged curriculum and love 50% of it. Spelling isn't working, or maybe the phonics book isn't exactly what we need. Perhaps math is not hitting the level. We will still need to make other purchases to fill in the gaps. As an overview, we don't purchase curricula based on its looks. Like my phonics program story, we need to consider the needs of the student in the context of our time and budget allowances. Once you've exhausted your search, make the choice you decide is best. Please don't let anyone influence you unnecessarily. Was I thankful for my friend to call me out and draw me back to reality when she asked, "Hey, Kelda, do you really need this pretty phonics curriculum for your daughter?" Yes, I am thankful for friends with whom we bounce ideas around, but be mindful of those who judge others for not homeschooling their way. At the very first At the very first homeschooling meeting I ever attended, a gentleman speaker condemned all curricula except the one his family used. He said that if I don't use a certain curriculum in a certain way, then I was shortchanging my child, and he would be destined to fail. This gentleman spoke with authority, and as a newbie to the world of homeschooling, I was hesitant to believe everything he said. One, I couldn't have afforded this curriculum, and two, I knew our kindergarten age son would not attend to hours of videos and workbooks, and it would not have been a good fit with the demands of our household. His advice did not align with what I had read and observed with my homeschooling friends. It did not lessen my doubts about our decision to homeschool our children, nor did it make me want to be affiliated with this group. Therefore, I am cautious to tell anyone that there is only one way to do anything. I will share my experience, what I like, what has worked, and what I wish I'd done more of. When it comes down to it, if it works in your house and you're seeing success and they are learning, then that's all that matters. It's one thing to dictate and another to encourage. Please use discernment and disregard this attitude toward the education of your children. You aren't doing it wrong, and we can always make adjustments to find the best fit. There were years my children used different phonics and math books. They read at various levels. Some needed extra spelling practice, and others needed phonics remediation. They all needed multiplication drills. I used multiple resources to teach my children to read. It depended on the approach and their reception. If it's working, stick with it. If it's not, then investigate other choices. Choose core subjects first: math, English, spelling, writing and reading under the ELA umbrella, science, and social studies. The packaged curriculums will sell you individual components. Let's say you like Becca's science and Bob Jones math. You can get whatever pieces you want for your student. You don't have to purchase every subject from one place. You will sell yourself you will They will sell you just a book or a workbook. If you are not sure whether you will like it, download sample lessons from their website and see if they are a good fit for you. Ask to borrow items from a friend who uses a particular book. This also allows your child to examine it and help you decide. Not that they always have the final say, but it's important to consider how the pages feel. Are they too rough, too glossy? Are the words and images visually stimulating or overstimulating? Do they prefer colorful books or black and white pages? Again, this goes back to their learning styles and personality. Math, in my experience, has been where I invested the most money because I purchased complete sets for the year. In the elementary years, along with the instructor manuals, there are typically components to the math program: manipulatives, workbooks, flashcards, downloadable instruction, that sort of thing. We will break down ELA, umbrella, into different components. ELA stands for English Language Arts. Reading is a beautiful thing. For the earliest grades, I recommend basic phonics readers. Bob books are wonderful. They are not expensive and can be found on eBay. They begin with short vowel sounds and consonant sounds and work their way into more complicated words. I also like Explode the Code for phonics and beginning spelling. If you are buying a packaged curriculum like a Becca or Bob Jones or Sunlight, then all the ELA components are there. Once your child is reading, the world is wide open. Reading allows for anything you and your child are interested in. It's organic learning. It can include the library's resources or your personal bookshelves. The next chapter in the Homeschooling 101 series will cover reading in depth. Did I assign reading to my children? Absolutely. But reading is one subject that once they are decoding and comprehending, their options are endless. With English, language arts, and writing, I appreciate Charlotte Mason's advice. I did not begin formal grammar until my child was about age 10. At that age, they have the logic to understand how words line up and the different jobs they perform in a sentence. Before this age, I would rather they be doing copy work, narrating, and writing. I like their writing to mimic good writing. Copy work includes poetry, lyrics, paragraphs, scriptures, and quotes. Students mimic basic capitalization and punctuation without the weight of rules. Once they can form letters and words, copy work is a natural handwriting practice. When learning to write, students learn both capitalized and lowercase letters, phonics, handwriting, copywork, and reading naturally incorporate grammar without formal instruction. We see that important words are capitalized, sentences begin with capital letters, paragraph indentions indicate change, complete thoughts end with punctuation marks. If you have a child that is eager to write and put together her thoughts, then absolutely run with it. But as a formal subject, I begin grammar in 4th grade and continue it through 8th grade. In high school, I review grammar and punctuation as needed and heavily enforce it through the editing process of their paragraphs and essays. Formal grammar includes parts of speech and basic writing patterns. I love to diagram, but that is not required to be a strong communicator. Spelling is learned in the early years through phonics and reading. I also begin formal spelling in 4th grade in the context of vocabulary. Science and social studies is basically reading comprehension subjects. Science and social studies are basically reading comprehension subjects. Most textbooks require reading a segment and answering questions. Trade books are published textbooks, a compilation of various authors and editors for school use. They include grade-approved vocabulary and reading comprehension levels. In contrast, living books is a term coined by Charlotte Mason that includes engaging narrative-driven books that make a subject come alive for the reader. They are typically written by a single, passionate author and live in libraries rather than in textbook form. Not that they are in charge, but interest-led subjects give a student say in what and how they learn. Through 7th and 8th grade, this is a wonderful way to learn the concepts for science and social studies. It builds autonomy in our children, the capacity and willingness of a student to take active control over their own educational journey. Packaged curriculum removes much of your say about what your children learn and how they learn it. The segments don't allow for depth of study in a subject. Maybe they want to hang out in space for a long time, geology, or American history. What if they get attached to a particular historical figure? Then allow them to dig deep and exhaust their resources until their curiosity is satisfied. One of the things I love about the classical model is that we begin with the ancients and continued into modern times, repeating it 3 times before graduation. Under the classical model, we rotate life science, earth and space, chemistry, and physics in cycles, focusing on one subject at a time. Elementary textbooks cover different topics and themes in a single year, perhaps covering these four areas of science in one textbook. In high school, the state requires that these subjects be organized under other headings: physical science, biology, chemistry, physics, human anatomy, and astronomy. Include experiments and field trips within social studies and science. If you can't tell, my heart and educational philosophy lean heavily toward living books and community resources. We learn differently if we watch a documentary, visit a museum, travel to a historical site, or read every book we could get our hands on in a particular subject or about a historical person. These books overlap and count in reading. Our students are engaged and interested. When students struggle in social studies and science, it doesn't necessarily mean they are bad in those subjects. Are these reading and comprehension issues? Are they interested in the topics? Are they curious? It all fuses. Regardless of your curriculum choices, I encourage you to keep it as simple as possible. There doesn't need to be a million math drills, busy work, or overkill in review. Home education can be simple and easy. If you cover these core subjects, you'll be surprised at how uncomplicated curriculum can be. Whenever I talk about curriculum, the question of Common Core objectives comes up. I grew up a military kid. Every state we moved had a different standard and a different curriculum. I might have learned cursive writing and multiplication in second grade in this school, and then when I moved to another school for third grade, I already knew everything that these students were just now learning. Different states, different districts. It was a challenge to say the least. That also formed gaps in some of my education because I had missed concepts taught the year before I transferred. This required remediation to catch up with my classmates. Given my educational experience, Common Core as an educational umbrella for the United States is a beautiful concept that states every student in every grade level has the same standards, goals, and objectives. The issue with Common Core is how different districts and school boards have chosen to implement it. These curricula are big business, loads of marketing, and millions of dollars invested in convincing states that their curriculum meets Common Core standards. In turn, the districts adopt these curricula. Since the adoption of Common Core, there have been numerous transitions and changes within schools and for teachers to adjust, sometimes yearly. It has created confusion and a lack of continuity within schools. It has also removed much of the creativity and ingenuity from teachers, adding more stress to their already full agendas. Parents feel frustrated by all the change and their inability to help their children. Since it's left up to districts to decide, not everyone in the U.S. is using the same materials to teach. Not every student in third grade is using the same science and reading books. Not every student is on the same page of math on a given day. I say all that to alleviate your worry about Common Core. If you're actively homeschooling your children and following a math curriculum or following guidelines set by your state, and you are confident that your child reads at a particular level, I can assure you that the professionals who wrote the book and listed the guidelines have already done the legwork for you. They have already done the work behind the scenes to make sure that your child's learning that material on a foundational level and building up from there. When I speak about the core subjects, that has nothing to do with the term of meeting Common Core standards, because the curriculum and books you choose will meet them. Please do not let these terms shadow your decision on how to choose your curriculum. This concludes Homeschooling 101, Chapter 2, Curriculum Choices. I hope this has been an inspiration for you, and I have answered some of your questions about curriculum choices. If you need more information, there are lists of recommendations in my book, Homeschool is an Action Verb. I also offer paid consultations where together we create individualized plans for your students. I look forward to being with you again in Chapter 3, Read! Exclamation point.